I'm joined in the studio by columnist Daniel Bice and reporter Bill Glauber, and in Madison, Jason Stein is here to join us. Hi, Jason.
Good to be here, thanks.
So Republicans control everything at the Capitol, but they don't agree on everything when it comes to the state budget. How are negotiations going? Jason, what do you think?
Right, so to be clear, they've got control of all of state government, and the only thing that they need to do to pass a budget is get an agreement amongst themselves, but it's harder to do than it might seem. And the things that they're disagreeing the most on is, number one, transportation. There's a lot of back and forth sniping over how do you fix the hole in the road fund? Do you raise taxes, or do you just delay and cut projects? And then there's also some back and forth over whether or not to take the large increases for K-12 schools that Scott Walker wants. Seems like Senate Republicans are willing to go along with those. Assembly Republicans are clearly wanting to pare those back some. And then last, they all agree that they want to cut taxes, but they don't yet agree on how to do it. Scott Walker has really talked about cutting taxes for broadly for, in small amounts for large groups of people in the state. Some Republicans have kicked around the idea of targeting those tax cuts more, possibly, doing some things that would only impact certain, like, say, business owners or people like that to a greater degree.
It seems like there's been quite a bit of fighting over roads and the order of projects. We heard from business leaders saying they wanted one project done. Assembly seems to be focused on something else. The Senate. Where are people at when it comes to road funding?
It's really tough to see how they solve this, because they have a bunch of possible solutions and they don't want any of them. I don't think there really is very limited appetite to raise the gas tax. There's maybe a little appetite among some to raise fees for vehicles, but not a lot of that. And then you've got borrowing. They don't really want to borrow. You've got cutting road projects or delaying them. That's also not very popular. You had some big businesses like Miller Coors and Palermo's Pizza that just on Tuesday were writing a letter to lawmakers and saying, hey, look, don't delay the Interstate 94 East-West project west of downtown Milwaukee.
Go ahead.
There's no solution for them. There's no good solution for them.
So you were at the hearing yesterday. What was that like?
Yeah, so yesterday's hearing, it was interesting because a lot of the lawmakers were kind of fighting amongst themselves about transportation. But members of the public, while some did weigh in on transportation, a lot of them were saying we need more funding for public schools. There was a heavy presence of school administrators, teachers, students, and parents. And it was interesting because I think that after several years of budget cuts, they are very hungry to see Walker's proposal to send more money back towards schools. We'll see if Republicans in the Assembly and Senate agree with that plan, and if they can come up with one that they all are comfortable with.
So there's control, and then there's control. And right now there's, if there isn't a new funding source, the issue becomes priority. And that's what seems to be going on with Robin Vos and the Milwaukee business community. One has one priority, which is to fix the interstate near Racine. That's Robin Vos's, and then the Milwaukee business community wants to get the zoo interchange completed right here.
It's amazing all the projects they took on at the same time now. They got to pay for them. That's what's occurring. I think the education piece of it is very interesting. Scott Walker has been on a tour of public schools lately, so education funding clearly important for him as he sees his reelection in 2018, clearly trying to push more money into education, and then seems to be getting pushed back in the legislature.
Well, we saw in the Marquette poll that funding for schools was a very, very popular issue. But in terms of increasing funding for roads, gas tax not popular, borrowing not popular, taking money from other agency was the only option the public likes. But of course, they didn't say which agencies or which funding.
Yeah, the reality too for schools is that if you look at school districts all around the state, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in referendums getting passed or getting at least put before voters this spring. And so, I think the governor's proposal is clearly in some ways a relief valve to have the state try and come in and take some of that burden off of local taxpayers. And that's, one reason why I think you see it out there in the first place.
Actually, in the Milwaukee area, most of the referendums went down in the Milwaukee area, like in Menominee Falls and so forth. So I'm wondering if
wheel tax was not a hit, obviously here.
Yeah, and the wheel tax wasn't. It seems like the public has done, at least in this area, enough they feel on the referendums, and they believe somebody else should be putting in the money.